Hi again, it's Jason from Fraser Valley Rose Farm, and this year I'm growing 6 different kinds of lavender for sale on the farm here. 3 of those I'm growing from seed, and the other 3 I'm growing from cuttings. Now, because you're inquisitive types, you might be wondering, why would I grow some from seed and some from cuttings? That's the topic of this video. What are the advantages and disadvantages of each production system, and which should you try at home? I'm down here in the propagation room of the basement, and I'll give you a look at what's on the table there. Everything that's on there right now is grown from seed. That's the difference between growing from seed and growing from cuttings, or at least the first one I'm going to discuss here is that when you're growing from seed, you can start it whenever your heart desires. There are some practical considerations as well to do with protecting it from the cold, and that's why I have it in a downstairs room of the house here. I have heat protection, and I can grow them on like this under lights until they're ready to go outside in my climate. Usually mid to late April is when we see our last frost here. So aside from those practical considerations, the nice thing about growing from seed is you can grow as many as you want, and you can grow them from whenever you want. Growing from cuttings is a slightly different matter because you have to wait for the adult plants, the mother plants that you're taking the cuttings from, to have new vegetative growth on them. For lavender in my climate, that's not going to happen. I couldn't even begin to do that until maybe April or May, when I would start to see fresh new growth on the lavenders, and then I would be limited to the amount that's available on the plants. Here with seeds, it's kind of an unlimited thing. I can start as many as I want. They do start out quite small, so I'm going to give you a look. This is Lavandula multifida, which actually took off very, very quickly. But I also started English lavender around the same time. Both of the plugs I'm going to put up on the screen here are about 4 to 5 weeks since germination, and you can see that the English lavender is quite small. That's one disadvantage, I'm going to say, of growing from seed, is that generally they will start quite small and they take quite a bit of time to size up so you can get them in the garden. Whereas if you're doing cuttings later on, they will actually they start with a bigger stem and they actually will take off a little bit quicker, so they'll be ready a bit sooner. Start later, ready sooner. These ones start earlier, but they take a longer time to get ready. Really, in terms of the difficulty of the two processes, they really are not that far from each other. I did a video last year on how to propagate lavender from cuttings. I will link that instead of going through it here again, but it's relatively easy. You need a sharp pair of scissors, you need some rooting hormone. It's nice to have a bright location and some warmth to get it kick-started, and it's best if you have a humidity dome, and I'll show you some of those here. I'll throw some footage in of that as well. But that's really all you need. It isn't a big, high-tech, complicated setup. Seeds are even easier, and I know that I'm going to talk now about the issue of stratification. Many people think that for lavender seeds that you need to use stratification, which is a cold period to force the seed to know that winter happened, and then it will help it to germinate faster. I have to tell you that I have never employed stratification on my lavender seeds. In my case, all I've done is I surface sow them on potting soil, barely cover it, put it into a warm, moist place, and I get even germination as long as I'm using fresh seeds. So for me, the big thing is that if I have high quality seeds, I find germination very, very easy. And if I have questionable quality or older seeds, that's when I get spotty germination, but no need for stratification as far as I'm concerned. So in terms of the difficulty of the varieties, there isn't a lot of difference between the seed varieties and the cutting varieties. So I do want to talk about one last consideration here, which is which varieties can you find from seed and which varieties must you only take from cuttings. And there's kind of like a Venn diagram here where there's some that you can really probably only find from seed, some that you can probably only propagate from cuttings, and there's a bunch in the middle that certainly if you have the mother plants, you can propagate them from cuttings, but you can also find the seeds pretty readily too. So there's lots of variability there. But the interesting part for me is that there are some that you can only grow from seed, that you only find from seed, and those ones, I'm going to put a list up on the screen here, that I can find from seed, but I've never seen in the garden center. And for me, that's an interesting thing. That's kind of cool because I can order them from a seed site, I can start them here, and now I have something interesting that I probably will not find in the garden center. Likewise, on the other end of the Venn diagram here are those that are grown from cuttings and can only be grown from cuttings because they are a selected variety or a selected cultivar that's selected for special features like silver-edged foliage or a special color of flower or a particular growth habit. And just about all of the Lavandula X intermedia varieties that are fantastic as perfume type plants or are used for growing cut lavender, almost all of those I think are grown only from cuttings and never from seed. So that's what you really have to watch for here, is that you have a good portion of the, I'm going to say, the Stochas varieties and the English lavender varieties. You could do either way and it won't make a lot of difference. You can probably find them from cuttings. You can find them readily in the garden centers, no problem. But there are some that you can only get from seed and there are some that you can only get from cuttings, and those are the ones that will make the difference between why you would choose one production method over the other. All right, I hope that cleared things up for you a little bit. If you have any questions about lavender varieties or the methods to start them, please drop those into the comments below the video. I'll see what I can do to help.